Hey, I'm Benjamin Verbacek, and I'm the lead pastor of Community Evangelical Free Church. I'm also the managing editor for Gospel-Centered Discipleship. And I'm coming at you with another episode of our Writers Coaching Corner, where I get in front of a camera and I talk about one paragraph from one article that appeared on our website the previous month and what was going on so helpfully in that article, and how do we get some of that writerly goodness into our own prose. And so the principle I'm talking about this month is this: good writing anticipates questions. Good writing anticipates questions. Now, hopefully it does more than just anticipate them. Like, well, I anticipated them, but I didn't do anything about it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying anticipates and then does something with that anticipation that helps helps readers learn and grow and be edified and shaped by the writing that you're doing, rather than distracted or discouraged or frustrated, especially when those aren't the emotions that you wanted to evoke. So I'm going to go right over to our website, get right into this. This is an article called Christian Displays of Affection. I'm not sure how common it is anymore to use the acronym PDA. That was a thing, but PDA, but he's got Christian displays of affection instead of public displays of affection. And this is from an author named Tim Shorey. He's one of our staff writers and been writing for us for a few years. He's got a number of health challenges of his own. He's in stage 4 cancer treatment, and he's been there for a while. He writes about that often on our blog, and we publish a series of those articles. I've highlighted those before. This is not that. This is just what I'll call a regular article of his that he does occasionally, and I thought it was helpful. We published it on Valentine's Day just because, what other day would there be better than to talk about Christian displays of affection? Now, he probably doesn't mean, of course, public displays of affection all those ways, although it is public, what he's talking about here. But he's talking about, the phrase in the Bible, to greet one another with a kiss, a holy kiss, or whatever that would mean in our day. And he wrestles with that topic. Now, as soon as you hear that, you're probably have questions that come to your mind. Okay, what does that mean in our day? And if someone kisses me, that's going to creep me out, and all of that. So here's his article. He talks about a Christian alternative. He gives the Bible verses where there are these Christian displays of affections. But I want to go right to this. Needed caveats and clarifications. Here's the paragraph. I'm aware that discussions of touch, he writes, in the church will conjure up fears in some who've been traumatized by past experiences of inappropriate touch from others, and in others whose health and immunity are compromised. Then he puts in the parentheses, which I've already told you about. I do have stage 4 cancer after all, so these thoughts often cross my mind. Parents certainly have legitimate concerns about guarding their children from predators. Each of these requires careful pastoral thought and application. Now, I'm just briefly, is that the best worded? Are these poetic, literary, winsome, challenging, ferocious words? No, they're just, they're well written, but they're well written. Why? They're well written because they're acknowledging to readers, if you've made it this far in my article, and maybe even from the moment you heard the title, you have questions, and they're legitimate, and let me answer them. And I think that's what Tim's doing so helpfully, and then he goes on and explores them in more detail. I won't go to those with you, but as I was thinking about biblical authors, I'll come over to, I just pulled up Paul, and I pulled out Romans just as an example into a Word document to just see. 84 times Paul uses, 82 times he uses a question mark to move his letter forward, to move his argument or arguments forward. And I just went to chapter 3 where there was a bunch of them. There's 19 of them alone in chapter 3. What advantage has the Jews? Because in chapter 2 he's talking about, you who are under the law don't practice the law, so what advantage is there? And so he's going to move his argument forward with questions there. And you can just see him highlighted as I scroll down. Large Old Testament quote, they're not there so much, but when he gets to verse 27 to 31, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. What then becomes of our boasting? It is excluded. By what kind of law? By a law of works? No, but by the law of faith. And so he's advancing. Now that's not the only way to signal to readers you've heard their questions, to just say those questions out loud. But that's one way we frequently see in the scriptures. Other writers will do it differently. Just to underscore the theme, I have an excerpt here from Home Row, a favorite podcast from back in the day, Jeff Metters. I call it back in the day because he threatens that he's going to bring it back at different times, and it comes back and then it goes away. But I think it's in a hiatus right now. But this is a deep dive from 2019 November. He had Justin Taylor on, and in this interview, they're essentially just walking through this article that Justin Taylor wrote. I'll go to the top. 15 pieces of writing advice from C.S. Lewis back from 2016, and then the essay, or the podcast was from 2019. They're going to talk about this one, number 9 here. Let me just play it now for us. I'm going to play it at 1.5 speed because that's often how people listen to audiobooks and podcasts, but I'm going to take about 1.5 minutes of this.
All right, 9, avoid ambiguity. So the way for a person to develop a style is to know exactly what he wants to say and to be sure he's saying exactly that. The reader, we must remember, does not start by knowing what we mean. If our words are ambiguous, our meaning will escape him. I just talked about this. I sometimes think that writing is like driving sheep down a road. If there's any gate open to the left or to the right, the reader will most certainly go into it. Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, it's a brilliant Lewisian sentence. And I think actually if listeners remember anything from our conversation, that might be the metaphor just to keep in your mind, because Lewis is modeling here what he's talking about. He's so clear. It's evocative. Let me just read it again. I sometimes think that writing is like driving sheep down a road. If there is any gate open to the left or the right, the reader will most certainly go into it. So they're prone to kind of wander off the path, and you have a destination in mind. You're leading them. They don't know what you're going to say. You know where you're going, and you need to take them there. And if you start introducing distractions, if you introduce ambiguity where they think, am I supposed to be going to the left here, or am I supposed to be going to the right? It's just going to be a train wreck. And so, those marching orders of know exactly what you want to say, and then make sure you say exactly that. Both of those pieces are really crucial. Yeah. You have to know where you're going, and then you have to actually do it and say it. And just so clear, so helpful, I think.
Yeah.
All right. I'd love for you to listen to the whole podcast. I'm going to cut it short, though. I found an article here from also on TGC, Why Lone Artists Need the Church. Those are topics close to my heart, but Jen Pollock Michelle is writing about that, and it's a long series, and she's talking about kind of poking the idea that there's a lone artist and the muse comes and you need to be at your writing desk, and it's this utterly solo affair. And now I realize there's such thing as distractions, and in the podcast Justin Taylor talks about not being distracted. But what I think Jen is doing so well is she's wrestling with, like, how do we do art when our lives should be immersed in the body of the Christ? And in fact, God actually is a Trinity. So that as the Creator, why would we think something different of us as little sub-creators, that we only do this on our own? And so I'm not going to go to any paragraph, but it's a helpful essay on that topic. As far as applications, what I would encourage you, as you've written something, I would just say show it to people. Certainly a paid editor is going to have the trained eyes, hopefully, to read it not only from his or her perspective as they receive the words, but a paid editor is going to put their minds closer to the audience than maybe the author is even able to do. Maybe not. If the author's really close to the audience, but sometimes that closeness doesn't let you hear how others might hear it, who aren't exactly the audience, but one step away. And that's where I think a good editor, if you pay them, will be doing that. But you can do that with friends. You can do that with, I often will have my daughter, she's now 17, will read something. She's very literal. She's good with words, but she reads things, and she sees questions that I don't often anticipate. So I find that really helpful. You might have other writer friends, but I encourage just non-writers, because not everybody who reads your stuff is going to be a writer themselves. So sometimes it's helpful to get a non-writer to read your words, sometimes a non-Christian. Something that helps me when I'm not preaching, so I preach about 60% of the time at our church. We intentionally have a team of other preachers. I will sometimes sit in that same seat I always sit in, but I will often move to different places in the sanctuary and sit with different people. And it's amazing to me how I'm hearing that sermon differently when I'm sitting with different people, because I know what they're going through. Oh, I'm hearing that truth, and oh, that really was helpful. Or I'm hearing you say that, but you're not thinking about this person and what they're going through, and they're hearing it differently, and I know they're now frustrated, and I'm glad I'm sitting with them, or whatever. I'm making it up a little bit, but that little movement of sitting somewhere in a different sanctuary with different people, I find really helpful. So here's a book I just want to share as a resource. Has nothing necessarily to do with what I'm talking about, anticipating questions. This is more just something that's on my shelf. I thought I'd make you aware. The Christian Writer's Manual of Style. You can see my bookmark. I'm making my way through it. This morning, I worked through Latin phrases that come into English prose and common ones and how to use them. Really obscure, but my role in publishing sort of means I need to know these sorts of things. Maybe not those things specifically, but a whole bunch of things that otherwise you'd pay an editor to do. I kind of need to know some of them. So I'm working my way through it. Maybe I'll get there in a couple months. Hopefully by the summer, we'll see. But thanks for watching. Tune in next month and we'll look at another article and what's going on helpful in that article and how to get that writerly goodness into our own prose.